And I think we are live now, guys. So,
Excellent.
okay, I think I think it's live. Cool. So,
Wait.
well, this is the podcast number 3 for the Rigging Buddies podcast, and thank you for coming, Jerome and Toke. Yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm just listening the preview on the other here. Sorry. So, yeah, thank you so much for being on this podcast and to help with the mGear development. Also, I want to make a big shout out for Chris Lesage. I hope I don't butcher your name. We was talking about how to pronounce it before, so I hope we did it right. And yeah, also big thanks to Studio Anima that allows me to keep developing mGear on while I'm working on the office when we have time. So big thanks to them. And of course, yeah, big thanks again for Toke and Jerome to help with this development, because I mean basically this release is your release. I did only a little bit, but the big change, it was on your shoulders.
Yeah, thank you, Miguel. And thanks to Chris as well. He has been a lot really helpful on keeping people up to speed in the forum as well. You have been really kind and really proactive in the forum, which is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, that's true. That Chris is it's replying everybody, and very like some of the replies. I honestly I'm just copying it for me. Like I have a
So that
little
you have it.
snip folder that it's Chris snippets. I'm not kidding. That's real. Okay, so one more thing on the people that is joining us on the live streaming. If you want to make questions, you can start adding it on the chat while we are talking. And I mean, if there is something related on the current talk or something, we will try to tackle it on the moment. But probably we will keep everything for the end. So we will maybe review all the chat log and reply as much questions as we can. Okay, so I think we can start right now with the presentation for mGear 3.2 and with Toke. And please, Toke, introduce yourself and go ahead with your stuff. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Toke Jepsen. I used to be kind of a rigger. Now I'm more of a pipeline guy. But I've lately had to rig a lot of characters, so I kind of needed to do something, get onto the mGear ship rather than just doing my own thing. So that's why I got into it. I think 2 months ago, something like that.
Yeah, around 2 months. Yeah, a bit more
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. But I started to like use it, and then there were some changes that I wanted to do. So I just started pushing code into the cloud, and see if I could get it merged. Um, One of the things that I wanted to do was I worked on this character, this dino raptor. One of the things is that his wrists are like twisted. So default or previously to the code I made, there was the wrist would not be twisted, aligned to the guide. But this is in the code now, so you can enable that in the settings with this align wrist to guide orientation. Miguel made a nice visualization of that, and I think it's on the root nodes as well on other stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
correct.
yeah, it's quite nice to indicate which nodes are being aligned orientationally. But let's build this guide. So on this side here, we got the wrist aligned, and this side it's not aligned. So that's the previous behavior. So we'll just quickly build it and see what kind of alignment we get. So this here is the aligned with the wrist, and on this side it's not really aligned. So you can see the y-axis shoot off to a different side, but here it's actually on top of the hand. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that feature. The other thing I worked on was the mirroring of control shapes. So when we do our nice adjustments to the control shapes like this, we don't really want to do double the work and put it on the other side. So what we do is just use the mirror control shape. It works in 3 modes. One is selection, so you just select your control and mirror it across. And another one is that to take the entire left side and mirror it to the right side. There we are. And the other way around, right side to left. Just, oh, no, that one. This one. There we are. It mirrors it in like world space. So yeah, the alignment of the controls doesn't really matter. It'll just do it in world space.
Yeah, this tool. Thank you so much, Toke, because this tool. I mean, I've been all these years doing by hand, and I had last year, like just before you posted the first snippet on the forum, I had like this script to do it manually, but it's still like something I never use it like so often, just because I just keep forgetting that was the snippet there. So I keep editing my controls both at the same time, and I can't believe it. I didn't implement this, and but thank you so much to do it, because it was a must needed tool, honestly.
It just takes too much time to do that, and then you end up making bad control shapes for the animators or something. So
yeah, it was like a
so the other one
my
sorry, what was that?
It was like a stain. It's not like a shame on my list of to-dos. Thank you so much for cleaning up that for me.
Hey, Toke, before you jump to another stuff, can you say about the orientation thing? Is it something that we were discussing to have in other components as well at some point? I don't recall.
So this was implemented in the, I think it's let me just have a look. 2.04. That's the only place it's implemented at the moment, but we could probably put it elsewhere as well if needed.
Yeah, well, let me clarify a little bit what's going on here and why it's done like that. Okay, so the first thing, it's going back to the like mGear design and the shifter rigging system design. The guides technically at the beginning was supposedly that we only use the position of the guide to determine all the positions and orientations, and we use the blades to help this positioning in some situations, like for instance in the
like
chains. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. So, but as Toke pointed here, the system had some limitations, and I did one exception time ago. There was the Control 01, and this control had the same problem. The control didn't have the. Just let me switch here to my Maya. So I have it's for later, but just jumping a little bit here. So because it's one control.
So when you're gonna share your screen.
Sorry, I'm just sharing on the stream, but not for you guys. Sorry.
Okay.
1 second. Where is this button? I'm sorry, guys. Okay,
Cool.
now I just need to hide this. Okay, so now I guess you see it through the Skype call. Okay, so this is the a control 01 that Toke was talking before. So this was an exception and was the only exception up to today, where if you check the settings, here you have this world space orientation that was the default one, and then if you uncheck it, you also get the visual thing that before was not there, and this visual thing indicates that it's taking the orientation of the control to orient the final position of the control rig, like this.
Yes.
And I was not very happy with this because that was going against the original design, and also I was not giving the user any visual cue of how to use it, or that if it was using one, you need to go here and see on the attributes if it's set or not. So it was a pretty bad design from my side, and like talking with Toke, and it made me see that the need of that this should be implemented in the way that we can set the guides and set the stuff, because for instance, for his character, for this Dino, yeah, it was clear a limitation that he couldn't put the guide as he wanted, so it was a big problem. And yeah, so in some point we just found the way that is okay if we give a visual cue that it's clear that we are using the orientation. I think it doesn't disqualify the other design that choice that we took at the beginning, and adds more value or more like control and solve these cases where we need this orientation working.
Yeah,
So
this
we
is
just need
definitely
it. So yeah.
a good add, because so in sometimes, yeah, the positioning of the guides cannot determine fully the orientation of what the components should be. So this is good to have.
Yeah. So yeah, Doug, thank you so much for this, because honestly I was a bit like because the idea is that you can place the guides as much fast as you can. So first, it's if you don't care about rotation, it's faster because you can move whatever you want, and then it's gonna work always in place. But there is like these exceptions that, of course, it's a limit. So if you make an option, yeah, it's gonna work better. And yeah, we have this. And the other thing I want to address here, in terms of why we have now 4 arms. So yeah, 4 arms. Well, basically it's because we are middle in production and we don't want to update the guides. We can update the guides, and it just takes like to go here and update the guide or do it by script. But yeah, I was talking with him, like I have to, like 2 big productions on the working that we have like literally like hundreds of characters and with variants, so it's like hundreds of guides to update. And even if I can do a loop, I prefer not to, because I mean it's always like hard. So we will keep this separation with different options for each arm and other components. And then what we do is when we switch to mGear 4.0, so a major point release, then we will consolidate all the new features back into one arm. So with major release, we also break backwards compatibility quotes there, because you always can update the guide. But this way, we don't need to update the guides during these 3.x releases. So that was the main reason, because we ended up with 2 new components today. For this release. Okay, so that's all I want to say on this part, or I have to say. Just going back to Toke, do you want to continue with your presentation?
Yeah, I was just wondering, there's a comment there for you, Miguel, about the orientation locator. I don't know if you want to answer that, or...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't see the comment. Where is it? The orientation locator, what are you using to display the custom locator? No, it's just a curve. It's just a simple curve. the only thing that has, and this is something that you have in all the curves in Maya, you know the curves, they have an extra attribute called line width, and -1 is
Cool.
the default, but you can put 3 or 5 and you can make it thicker. So that's it.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's -1 is the default one.
Excellent. All right. Cool.
Yeah, that's a little. I don't know. I don't see too many people using this, so you can, because it's bolder, you can see over the other one. So no magic there. Okay, so can you share your screen again, Toke?
Yeah, I will share now.
I can just going back to my Skype.
Right.
Okay.
So, are we seeing the character?
Yes,
Yes.
we should see it. Yeah.
Cool. So the other thing I worked on was the eye rigger, and how it kind of worked from a like UI side mostly. Um, the legacy, so the old eye rigger is all put into legacy now. So it is in legacy menu, facial eye rigger and facial lips rigger. There's not a huge difference in functionality. There's some bugs that's been worked on and stuff like that. Chris made some extra features on it as well. But mainly it's been consolidated into one tool called Facial Rigger, where both the eye rigger and the lips rigger is in one. This was mainly because they use the same kind of import-export functionality. So it's easier to just gather it up all in one module. So what I worked on was the import part of this UI, where you can export your, like you could previously export the config, but you couldn't import it into the UI. So this is what you can do now, and you can edit it again and then export and continue that iteration quite quickly without any text editing.
That's
And
really great.
that's it for me.
Yeah, I think you forget one important thing. It's you only. I mean, you did fix or add the import-export functionality, but you also addressed the JSON file readability. So right now, your JSON file, it's a dictionary instead of a flat list that I did. So it's way easier to edit than before, because before was just a simple list. So
That's true. Yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah,
It
that's
makes it also
important.
like a
Yeah, very.
future kind of it not proofing, but easier to migrate to other future versions of the iRigger and Lips rigger.
Yeah, or if you need to serialize edits from different characters, you can do it like externally also. That's
Oh yeah,
something.
that's true.
Yeah, I mean it look for me. I mean maybe it doesn't look that big this, but it's big. It's very big in terms of like pipeline wise and reusability. And just one one thing for Chris. I know you're listening here on the chat. I see a really nice tweet you did last week about the pupil rig, and maybe there is a space for another tab on that tool for the pupil rigger. Just putting this here. So
That
it's
would be
public.
nice.
Sorry,
Put
Chris.
some pressure on Chris.
No. Zero pressure. Sorry. Oh. So this is sorry, Toke. Yeah, that is the dictionary.
Yes, yeah. I just showing it off.
It's super clean. If I showed the other one, it was like, oh my god. I had to. For myself, sometimes I just put. I had to check the code to know which was the right position. It was horrible. Shame on me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Toke, for the presentation. Maybe the people later have some more questions, so we can tackle that later. So,
Sure.
Jerome, are you ready?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so let's switch to Jerome now.
Okay, so if everyone is seeing the screen, I wanted to first quickly show one of the Chris was mentioning on the chat just now, that I think he actually separated the blinks as well so that people could animate them individually, like the upper part and the lower part on the attributes, which didn't exist before, if I'm not mistaken, Chris. I think that you were mentioning that on the chat. So yeah. So I'm going to show this new feature that we added, which is called the Cache Manager, that you can find in Animbit's Cache Manager. And the Cache Manager is kind of a simple UI that is going to try to list all the rigs on your scene, and it's going to allow you to create a GPU caching representation of the animation. And well, you have several options out of it. I'm going to first explain how it works, and then I'll go a little bit more in deep in the details, how to customize it and make it work within your pipeline or your basic setup. So the first thing you have to know is that by default, mGear has on the roots an attribute that is called mGear isRig, right, Miguel? I always forget the exact same name. Let me just go back to this one. IsRig. So these attributes that are found on the roots, right? So by default, it's trying to search on your scene all the rigs that contain this attribute, so that it's gonna list them in here. So this, the fact that it uses this attribute can be customized later on, but by default it recognizes mGear rigs. So here, for example, I have these 3 rigs in here that I can play a blaster, just a mock-up view animation that I just plug it really quickly. So first of all, you need to tell mGear where your geometry is, because again, mGear is not a Python-specific tool. So the model group, the group containing your geometry can be anywhere. So, sorry if you hear kids crying, it's their home, so it's like the everyday life of a rigger. So, by default, it doesn't get filled, so you have to give it the place in which the geometries are, and that without a namespace. So first of all, okay, so first of all, sorry about that.
That's I have to say that, yeah, I'm glad because we are doing this, and I'm sorry, Jerome, I was talking like because my kids are already on the bed at this time. It's very late here in Japan, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry
Next
about
time
that.
No worry. I mean, everybody, or not everybody, but I know what is it. It's like with the kids. If you hear mine today, was like wow, amazing, screaming thing.
Anyway,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Let's go back to the topic.
So here, for example, on the rig that you did, Miguel, on this character, the group containing the geometry is called georoot. So you're just basically going to tell the system where it is. So I'm going to copy just that, georoot. I'm going to hit set in here so that the system recognizes this. And it's going to, by default, take a path. So if you haven't given it anything, it's always going to use the temp path on your OS system. So whatever, your Linux or Windows, it's going to take that from Python. So, but you can still customize it. So for example, here I'm gonna make it point to a folder that I created on my C drive. So I'm gonna just click in here and go get it, which is caching. Where did I put it? There we go. So from now, this is what is going to happen. It's going to look for the geometry inside the georoot node, and it's going to create a GPU caching representation, and it's going to put the file in this space. Then you have other options. What do you want to do with the rig? If you're working on reference, you can either unload and hide the rig. So normally, if you're working on reference and you hit unload, it's going to basically go into the reference editor and just unload the rig. It's not going to remove it from your scene. It's just going to simply unload it so that the rig is not there on the scene, and you just are kept with the GPU representation. But if you're not working with references and you're working with another Maya system, or just you have everything on your scene, you can always hide it. And normally, and this happens often, that for example the root node, the visibility is hidden. So this is kind of creating a mute node, Maya mute node, just so that I can override whatever the system has on the root node, so that it's always going to get hidden. So let me just first run one caching here. I'm going to say unload, and later I'm going to explain the display type.
Sorry, before doing the cache, can you show the playback speed with all the characters load to see the differences?
Yes. So for now, we have on my system an average of 15, 14 frames per second on this type of geometry and rig. So the idea is just increasing that, of course. So I'm going to just cache this one. So first thing that you have to note is that it's going to use your timeline range in range, not the full range, but the medium range. So once it's done, this will display itself with another icon, and it's going to tell you that it's there. So now this rig, it's just fully a GPU caching representation of this. So here we're going to have like 200 frames per second. It's a little bit too fast. So it kind of gives us turbo effect, but yeah, no, this is real time. So I can basically do the same with the other two rigs. And for now, if I go to the reference editor, for example, you can see that for now, this rig, it's loaded. So if I want to go back to my animation, then I just can simply hit in here, set rig. So it's gonna take rid of the cache and bring back your rig so you can animate it again, right? So you have the other option, which is hide as well. I'm going to use it on this one. And you can as well change the display type. And this has been done because Maya GPU caching representation only supports, I think, Lambert, Blinks, and Fongs shaders. So if you have a really simple shader version of those. So if you have something more complex, like a Narlow shader, whatsoever, what is going to happen is that your caching representation is going to be black or maybe red or just one single color. I don't recall exactly. In some versions of Maya, it was just pure black representation, and in others, it was another color. So basically, this allows you to kind of give it a custom color to it. So you have a picker, and then you can decide a nicer color. So yes, you're going to lose a little bit the representation of separate shaders on the viewport, but at least it's going to be something that you can still see. So let me run these two guys. So if you see here the caching folder that I pointed out, let it run. You see it creates a file. And the way I'm naming these files, it's kind of unique names. So it's basically taking whatever the root name was and is putting a stamp of the date and the time in which the caching got created. And one of the main reasons I'm doing this is that if you actually set a caching folder that is shared across several animators at the same time, you really want to avoid having conflicts of caching for the same type of assets that the animators on different Maya scene files could be animated. So this actually makes a unique file out of it so that you don't get any conflict. So now you see like the color code overrating and you have this one. Here, because your character was like think pure Lambert colors, if I keep current, it's gonna work. So that's gonna work. And here I'm gonna click unload again. These two guys were hidden, so the rigs are still there, but just pretty hidden. And I'm gonna just cache this one as well, finalize. Oops, sorry, forgot to select. So Miguel, is everything that I'm explaining clear enough so far?
Yeah, I think so far so good. It's very clear. Yeah.
So here you can see the difference with those caching all the characters being loaded. So I have two rigs that are hidden and one that is actually a reference that it's being unloaded. So I'm getting full frame, but that's thanks to my caching, not everything that we're doing. It just is. This just allows you to handle the content of your scene and creating the caching and streamlining that process. And another thing that I want to mention is that the moment you set back the rig, the file is going to get deleted. Maybe later on I'll add an option for that so that it doesn't get deleted. But the idea is that this caching doesn't pollute your drive either. So whenever it's needed, it's there. Whenever it's not needed anymore, it gets fully deleted. So that's one thing important to mention. And lastly, I think this is a little bit more advanced, is the customization of how to make it work within your pipeline and within your rigs. Because again, this tool can be used even with rigs that are not mGear rigs, right? So the way you can streamline that into your pipeline is by setting these environment variables. The first one being mGear Cache Manager rig attribute. This one is going to stand for the root node attribute that you actually want to look in your rig. So if I just take this one, by default, it's this attribute, so it's rig. Let me just scroll in here. So it's rig is the default one. But basically, if I override this and put it to something like my studio rig node, whatever, then it's going to actually look for that attribute on the scene and list the content in here. Secondly, it's the mGear Cache Manager model group. So this stands for the model group that you're setting in here. So basically, let me just delete in here and set something in here. Test. I think it's not going to work if it doesn't find any test group, but let's try it out. Oops. Import OS. Then let's run this. So normally, let me just. So yeah, so here what's happening is that it doesn't find any test group, so it's still taking whatever got saved on the preference file. So this is actually quite interesting. So when there's no environment variables set, mGear is going to save a file. I mean, the cache manager is going to save a file in here in your Maya folder, which is going to be under mGear, and it's going to just create a JSON file, which is a dictionary again, which will actually set and store the preferences that you have set. For example, if you decided to load the rigs, it's going to set 1 or 0, and the path that you put and the geometry group in there. So if this doesn't exist the first time, it's just going to try to take the default ones, right? But let's just create, let me just create and give it in here, GeoRoot. I think that was the name of the geometries, right? GeoRoot. So now I don't have a preference file. So basically, if I open the cache manager again, you see it doesn't list me the GeoRoot node that I previously saved. So I'm going to just force the environment variable now, and normally if everything goes right, oops, nope.
Yeah, that's the demo effect, of course.
Damn it.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's clear how it works, and yeah, yeah.
So normally let's try with this one, because I double check all this stuff before the podcast, so it should work. With, how it goes. So here I'm on the temp folders. So now that I pointed out to, weird. Okay, never mind. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, well, these are the variables that should be overset. Sorry about that. I'll make sure that it was working. It's supposed to be working, but anyway. So that's pretty much it for the cache manager itself. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'm really excited with this tool, because honestly it's much needed in production. And one thing I would like to talk about is that we are working now on 2018, and I guess many of people in production it's still working in 2018, but we have also this playback cache from Maya 2019. I think Autodesk is gonna keep improving that technology in future releases, and how this tool it's gonna be like a perfect companion for the. I mean, it's not exclusive one or the other. So I think each of the tools has its advantages and disadvantages, and it doesn't. I mean, if you're working on 2019 and you have your playback cache, you probably know that it's a little complex to configure, and if you don't have a beefy machine with a good RAM and you take by default the configuration and so on, you will see quickly that it goes fast, like very in a not relatively small frame range. You can eat all your RAM and so on. So let's say we have at the studio productions where we have like more like 5 characters easily in per shot, and I've been doing some tests with Maya 2018, and obviously even we have like 32 gigs of RAM in some machines, even more. That is the regular one for an animator. We are not talking about like FX team that usually have more RAM. So you cannot really cache that much out of the box with that. I mean, you can create your custom cache filters, evaluators, or I don't remember the technical name that they use, but basically you can create filters to use only like the mesh or the polygon mesh instead of all the evaluation graph on all the rig and so on. So you reduce the amount of RAM needed, but still like you still a lot of RAM to make this work. So if you're working with these characters, 5 or more characters, and probably what you want to do is like keep the characters that you are actively editing, maybe with in case of 2018, just with the playback cache, and the rest you just use the cache manager to free all the RAM as much as possible for the rest to perform as faster as you can. And obviously, if you are in 2018 or older, you don't have anything else. I guess I think maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, again, like you're saying, it's really important. It's like it's a companion more than something that is going to replace, because it does something totally different than the caching timeline of 2018.
Yeah, and I want to say another point or another feature is maybe, of course, you don't have the live update on the cache, but it's way simple to use, and technically it's way more simple to understand that you do the cache, it's cache. It doesn't take RAM, doesn't take speed from your machine. You unload, you can edit, and again you cache again. So it's very like straightforward use. The other playback cache. I mean, I think it's easy to use, honestly, but at the same time, you may find some circumstances, especially with some animator. I mean, there are animators that are very technically savvy, so they will understand what's going on, but some others are not that much, and they may get confused when for instance, the RAM is full and the machine needs to flash the RAM, but it's not flashing fast enough, and then it's not caching, and everything looks like it's slowed down, and you don't understand why, and probably it's gonna come to the rigger and say, "Oh, your rigging is broken" or something like that. So with this, it's gonna be way simple. You have unloaded the rig, so it's clear that it's not the rig, and you have your cache, and it's very very simple. Of course, the other drawbacks probably it's what Jerome commented about the colors representation and things like that. Also, I think you can render this thing, no, Jerome? If you have the cache and you just open your render view and push the button, it's not gonna show up.
Normally, I think it is, no? You can actually. I don't recall. Let's try that, but I don't know if I have Arnold here. But
to test it, you don't have load Arnold or anything. I don't see the menu in your screen.
No, I don't have it in here.
But yeah, so obviously it's I mean, he has his limitations, but and in productions where you have like TV series that we're doing things like that you have many characters on screen, it's I mean it's like it's a must needed tool,
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm quite surprised nobody did it before, honestly, like this, because you have it, the technology there, like Maya had it, the GPU cache and everything, which is just to provide like a simple, nice, clean interface and the workflow to do it like simple, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it's more something that is gonna help just getting the characters on the scene and filter them out if you have several ones. And it's
yeah,
especially if because it's customizable in the way it finds the rig. You can easily filter the content on the scene. So whatever is animated
yeah,
and whatever you want to cache. Some animators like this process, some others like less. But
yeah.
when you have several characters on the scene, it does. It
Yeah,
is really useful.
yeah. Obviously, that one workflow doesn't fit everybody, but yeah,
No.
I think it. For me, it's fantastic, and I think, I mean, if you collapse the options menu that you was showing now, that you normally you will work without that, so
Yeah.
that is the real interface that you're gonna use like 99% of the time. It's just
Yeah, it's
cache,
just
set
caching
rig,
on set
set
rig.
rig, cache, set
Yeah.
rig. That's it. You don't need more.
Yeah.
And
I wonder whether you could I mean, this is just me being lazy, but you could maybe do like a checkbox, couldn't you? Instead of the buttons down there.
Yeah, well, it's the UI design is always kind of tricky. Checkbox, I think, could be a nice idea as well. Let's see
yeah,
what the user says on the forum. The
yeah,
thing
Yeah,
I always the reason why it's on a button is because uh, it's a long lengthy process. It can be pretty lengthy depending on your scene to actually cache in all the content on your scene, right? So I tend to think that if it is something directly on the name that you're selecting, that you might just by mistake do something that it's not relevant.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I
don't
agree
know.
with Jerome. I think it's good like
but
that because here you can select. It has 3 now, but imagine you have 15. You select all the list, push the button, and go to take a coffee or something. And I mean, I hope no, it doesn't take that long. But yeah, maybe if it's a lot, it will take. And if it's a long, like shot with many frames, it may take
Yeah,
some time to cache. So you can take your break,
there's
and
still
if you have
there's
to
still room
push,
for experience for things
yeah,
that can be better. For example, I think for future releases, Miguel, I'll
yeah,
try to add the viewport isolation so that everything that it's there doesn't pollute anymore. I think I stopped the viewport. I did post the viewport when it does it, but I don't
yeah.
recall.
I
But
think
yeah,
it
there's
comment
a little bit of
needs
room
to
of
do it one by
optimization.
one. No, that's the limitation right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, it is. So basically, what I want is to still have several files, one per caching, but the timeline, if you have selected several assets, that it just go one time and not several times, which is kind of a bummer. But yeah,
Yeah, that's I mean, yeah, but it's still like it's gonna be a time saver, and probably you're not gonna do like these 15 characters at a time. As an example, you will be go like a few characters, and you have here like it's a good like 1 second, and it was super fast. Obviously, it was short to make the demo, but yeah, you see the point.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really nice.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. So there's just that something was happening with the library. So I did set up the environment variables on my end file, which then got picked up on this new space.
so you have it
So
trying to set
yeah,
to, yeah,
well, normally it's supposed to be dynamic the last time I checked, but you know, you know how it goes. But yeah, normally you
yeah,
can set that on the environment and it should pick up. And if you don't want to work with environment files, this is still going to get saved. So you don't need to put georoot every time you're opening the UI because it's going to still be saved on the preference file.
yeah,
And the same for the GPU
yeah.
caching destination and
Yes.
whatever is hidden or not hidden. So it's just one-time process.
Yeah, so this is mainly for a single user or like freelance or someone who's using it at home. And then if you're working in a bigger studio with a proper pipeline and people who will configure the environment for each project, this should be completely automatic. So you should not also have any problem on that. Okay, Jerome, thank you so much. Do you think we can move and for the next little
Yes,
part?
yes, go ahead. Yeah, yes.
Okay,
I think
so
I already spoke too much.
okay, thank you so much. I'm just gonna put my Maya on top of your window. Okay, so just for the last part, I just did a little scene here with. Okay, here's the leg. So for this release, I did an update on the arm and leg to joined components to add some thickness to the limb. So basically, what you have in almost all the rigs and also in many of these components is that you don't have thickness for your articulation. So when I flex my leg like this, so this area here around the knee or the elbow, it's collapse inside. And as you know, the real like humans, we don't have an inch here and we rotate like that. It's more like organic, and we have like an arc, because one like say one bone slides on top of the other that are not like perfect regular things. So what we have now, it's the ability to control the thickness. So I have this extra control here that the animator can use to control the thickness manually or offset the leg if it's needed for any reason. But also the new components has this thickness automatization here. So oops, I'm just pushed the wrong button, this one. So I calculated like this value, it's around good for this one. So basically it's gonna give this thickness, and it's gonna be by default it's the same position, so it doesn't change here or anything, but it's when you flex, it's gonna grow the thickness of your knee, and you can see you can get much better deformation here. Well, the knee, it's right now only like skin cluster, so doesn't have anything else. Normally when I do this rigging or we do it in production, we add a little more, like we add like 3 control 01, one for this area here, another here for the calf. I think it's called in English, this area. Someone can correct me if it's the calf, Toke or Jerome?
No, it's down. It's like behind the tibia, the muscle.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the muscle. Sorry. Anyway, and well, the knee here. No, so the scapula. No, scapula. No. Oh my God.
No, that's the kneecap.
Yeah, the knee. Just saying all the wrong names in English. I'm sorry. Anyway, you get the point. And then a little corrective line shape, and you can get a really nice deformation. I have to say, yeah, calf. Oh, so thank you, Chris. So I was correct. Yeah. So we have from long time ago some components from Miles. It's these ones I call MS that also does this like thickness on the articulation. It's slightly different. The first thing, it's like it doesn't. You need to animate the thickness or put a set value, and it always has this. And it push also the upper part and the lower part. So instead of here that it's only pushing this area, it will push up and it will be 50-50. So slightly different the behavior. Yeah, you can try the other one, but yeah, I found that I needed to have this automatization, so I did it here on this one. So that's it. That's the my contribution mainly for this release. I think it's really small, but I hope it's gonna be useful for many people. Okay, guys. So I think it's the time for the release. What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's do it. Like that's gonna be
like,
first time ever we do the release live. So I have the draft here, and it's gonna push the button, and yeah, it's public, so guys, you can download it. So just go to the you can go to the mGear website, or here on, I mean, if you go to the mGear website, it's gonna be easier to go to the link. So just go to download, and you have it here. This one, you can get the zip file with all the solvers and extra plugins compiled for your operative system. And yeah, have fun. That's it. Oh, Chris, you get the champagne. Thank you, Chris. Yeah. Okay, so last yeah, we are almost 1 hour. I think it's gonna be sharp this time. On the chat, do you have any question or anything that you would like to talk? Wait a few seconds. We are working with a little lag. And yeah, someone was saying here is that we should do more like tricks on the random tips and tricks for Maya kind of videos. Yeah, that's I think this is the way that Maya works, with random tips and tricks, workarounds.
Yeah, no, of course.
Totally random stuff. It's the yeah. Sometimes it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Well, anyway, for
Yeah.
for people using the Disney features, the forum is still there. So if you have any issues, please report them. And yeah, I think you were planning of doing more releases more often, for small things, right? That's what you were doing now.
Yeah, I hope. Right now, I think the roadmap may change, because we cannot ensure anything by a fact. But right now, probably I'm gonna be busy until end of summer, and I don't know if you don't come to the rescue. I mean, you guys like Jerome and Toke and Chris and other people. I don't know if it's gonna be that often, like release. Probably maybe some bug fix and maintenance things, but that for sure. I want to work also on tutorials and documentation, so to make it easier for everybody to work with. And the next big thing that we aiming for, it's unless in my side, I don't know, Jerome or other developers on the team, will be like the way that I don't know, like how to explain this, but it's more like a nodal evaluation graph for build rigs, or like in a, I will not say like in a Houdini way, but something like right now you have the custom steps where you execute one script after the other. So similar thing, but in nodes, so you can make branches and create variants of the rigs and things like that, a bit more visual. So it's not gonna be like anything like you cannot do now, but it's gonna be easier and should be more efficient. And it's gonna be outside of Shifter. It's gonna be something that can be used by Shifter or by any other process. So that's just gonna be the big thing. The big update probably by the end of the year, early next year. And after that, there is hopes or to make for next year the update to get ready for Python 3.0, like to futurize everything. Maybe moving more stuff to API instead of using PyML, so hopefully we can get rigs faster build. I mean, it's not that terrible, the times, it's but we have in production like pretty like heavy rigs. It goes up to 2 minutes something, that it's not like the worst scenario. I'm talking about full rigs with facial, connecting billing shapes, everything, all the ring and bells. And it's 2 minutes and a half and something, that it's still like not satisfied with that. And some other like many ideas on the backlog for Shifter and other tools. But yeah, again, this is all will depend of the production schedule and how busy are we, like I don't know.
Well, like I mentioned, I really want to take a rough work on the transposing the guides from one geometry to the other.
Oh yeah, that
I think Raf did an amazing work already on that, but
yeah.
I just taking it and finalizing and doing an UI for it. And maybe later this year it's gonna be available. I hope so.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah, let me make it also showed up for Rafael. It's been helping a lot in previous versions. Um, Sadly, it's busy now with pipeline stuff, so it's not always like possible to help us. But okay, so I have here me. Um,
So Yasha was commenting, asking about the RBF update, um,
oh,
which I
yeah, I
which I think,
forgot about that.
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, is the fact that you can use it in on-control
Yeah,
nodes, right? Don't
yeah,
recall.
yeah. Good call. Yeah, I did a horrible presentation. Yeah, just one second. I just want to was in the shifter. Yeah, here. So Rafael did this relative guide placement that is working. We was it's a little polish. That is what Jerome is gonna do. He was talking about. But if you want to dig, it's been there for a few releases already, but we didn't say anything. So basically, you can store the relative pose of a rig from or guide from one topology, and if you use like universal topology, you can readjust automatically the guide to another topology. Oh yeah, that's yeah, shame on us. We didn't announce or say anything on that. Okay, so yeah, for the RBF solver, yeah, basically what you can do now, and I'm gonna plug here another stuff, is let me observe Rigbeat's RBF manager. So you can use now like okay, gear, just add in the blended joint here and gimmick one here. So and maybe I think well it's gonna add a couple. Let's say I add these two gimmick joints here. They're not skinned or anything yet, but let's say we want to use this for to drive some automatization when we articulate the leg. So the first thing it's now on these new components. By the way, the arm 2 joints 3 and the was the leg 2. That is the one I'm showing here. We have a new like element to drive. Oops, this is the guy. Sorry. Okay, I'm just gonna find it to drive the RBFs or the driving keys or something, and it's very simple. It's called here reader. We use reader B, this one here, and I'm just gonna use just for the sake of the demo, just FK here. So, and why I'm using this instead of the joins as usually do for the RBF manager, it's because because we have this articulation that it's moving the joint, so you don't want to use it. In some situations, you may create confusion. So we have this reader that is just giving you pure the rotation of the knee in this case, instead of all the joint may give you confusing values. Okay, so I'm just gonna show here the cables. I'm gonna get all three, so it's gonna rotate only in one axis, but I'm just gonna use the three, and then I'm gonna get to this joint here, and you can see my joint is here right now. It's direct to this one, and you will see it's gonna create an intermediate hierarchy. So I'm just gonna create here. I'm just gonna call sample. Oh, sample, and I'm just gonna use the translation and rotation. And okay, so we have it. So you see the visual connection is lost, but you have this in like middle thing. And this also big shout out to Rafael, because I didn't make this. It's Rafael who did it, and he did it maybe a year ago, and we just I don't know how to say that. We just missed the, I don't know, it get lost on translation something, and it was a pull request there, and I just recovered the data. Okay, so we have the first one, and now I'm just gonna add the second one. So same thing, new RBF, translation, rotation, Bob. So we have it there. We have the other intermediate. So basically now we can come here and say I want this joint that goes here, and I want this joint that goes there, and add a new pose, and I can add more. So now I want this joint that goes there, and maybe this joint, just to make it clear, I want to go there, and add the pose. So now you see it's like a say driving key with joints, but way better because you can have way more complex behaviors with the RBF solver. So that's it. Okay, are you there, guys? I'm alone.
Yeah, no. For me, it's pretty cool. I think it's something that it was missing even for me to use. So.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, that's it. The RBF manager update, and you get these extra transforms, but it's gonna export to FBX. So if you bake everything for games and so on, it should be working.
Yeah. Cool.
Can you drive plane shapes with RBFs yet? Yes, Justin, you can, and indeed, the the RBF solver, it comes from a nice plugin called Shapes that it's all focused on on driving plane shapes.
Corrective shapes.
Corrective plane shapes,
So I don't know if I don't recall some releases ago I did add support for it, but I don't think it was really super rock solid. But yeah, I mean, the RBF manager inside mGear, I think more like driving things, parts of rigs, and not
exactly
plane shapes.
Yeah, if you want to drive lane shapes, you better get the license for shapes, and it's gonna be the best. Honestly, I always say if I have to work, to work or to do rigs, I always need like 3 main tools for me. One is mGear, of course, because it's my tool set, but also it's shapes and ng-skin tools. Without these 3 tools, I just don't know how to rig in Maya, and I don't even gonna bother to learn how to rig without the tools, because nobody learns how to be slow and worse in his work, I guess.
Well, I think that getting to a state of how Ingo, so Brave Rabbit, has shapes going, it takes a lot of time. It demands a lot of effort and development. And now I think it's really powerful. Taking the time to be at the same level of his tool demands a little bit of time. So,
there's no way.
It's not expensive. So.
No, you can get. Like a one. It's educational, no commercial license. You can try it for free, and I think it's 150 euros. But trust me, if you're working professionally, educational is 45 euros. So you can try it for free if you. And it's not euros, it's USD, so it's even cheaper. So and it's it's gonna save you so much time that it's. This is free. Basically it says 150 USD, US dollars, but after a few months working, it's free. It's I would say just one rig done, and it's you already get more time and more healthy mind than the worst.
It's worth mentioning that I think Ingo added on the last is the fact that the way driver, Shapes uses its way driver, but you can use it as well with the pose interpolator of Maya.
Yeah.
So correct. It's a nice way of not using Maya pose editor UI as well, which some people don't like, and some of the mirroring things are not pretty well done, which in Shapes is not the case. It's way better, but in a sense that it works better.
Yeah, so it works really well, and And yeah, we are using the same solver. Indeed, Ingo released it. I did like open source release on their MIT license also. So we are now vendoring the RBF solver with mGear. Before you had to download it separately, but now you get it included on the mGear release, and that was like Ingo so kind that he did this release. So I will dare to say that it was because we because for us
You
it
force
was
him.
no, I didn't force him. But y- is you say like, yeah, why don't you include it? And I say, no, man, I just wanna point the people to your web so they'll download it from there, and you need to get the credit for this, and say, no, I'm gonna put it open source and so on. So it was more like officially like this. But yeah, if you listen, Ingo, thank you so much for this. I mean, it's I do RBF everything now. Now, when you have the ultimate tool and you want to use it everywhere, and trust me, I'm using it everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so no more questions on the chat. Hey, Marin, thanks for coming. I know you're super busy. Agreed. Okay, so I think if there is not more questions, thank you so much, guys, for coming today to present your updates for mGear, and obviously for doing it. It's amazing. Also for Chris and everybody else who was participating on the forum and giving like feedback and reporting bugs. Also, like big thanks. Also to Studio Anima, again, big thanks. I love you guys. One more thing. Next week it's gonna be on the podcast. Sorry, just Mark. Yes, of course. Mark Jepsen is gonna be from Red 9, so it's gonna be talking about his tools and what he's doing on his work. And yeah, thank you so much, and see you next week. Bye bye.
Thank you.
All right.